So today's video sort of again stems from answering some viewers' questions about the rabbits and feeding the rabbits.
So we did a video on feeding rabbits as part of our rabbit series, which we will link up above. But really, pellets are the complete ration. They are
the only way you could feed your bunny on a single thing.
Yes, you can just basically
pellets.
feed pellets and be pretty assured you're not going to get deficiencies and everything else. Like, they're scientifically formulated to be complete rations.
Mm-hmm. At least the pellets we feed rabbit complete. There are pellets out there that are alfalfa pellets or things like that, so you do need to watch what you're buying. We buy a complete.
And that's going to depend on your area and your local feed mills, and there's a lot of variation depending on where you are in the world, basically.
Yeah.
There are resources out there that will tell you don't feed anything but pellets or you'll have problems. We haven't really found that. That being said, when we feed things that aren't pellets, we feed variety, and that's probably the key to success.
For example, the grain mixture is a great way to bring down your costs because you can take the pellet, which is the more expensive option, and sub it out some days for the grain mixture, and also incorporating in some greens, grass, weeds.
Now, the caveat to that is it makes it inherently more complicated.
You're just hoping by feeding this variety that you are achieving the goal of getting that rabbit everything it needs. If you don't have the variety, steering away completely from the pellets is
probably not a good idea.
Advised.
At least not at the beginning. Because rabbits have such relatively fast life cycles compared to, say, cows. And selecting your herd, assuming that you're going to have a herd and kind of maintain enough animals that you don't need to bring animals in all the time, you will find that your herd will just, and it's going to sound wishy-washy, but sort of adapt to your management system over time.
Because you're selecting, when you're selecting your cull animals and you're keeping breeding animals, you're always choosing the best ones. And if those best ones developed from your feeding methods, that means your feeding methods were working for that individual.
And you kind of have a knock-on effect.
Yeah, you're putting that back into the genetics of your herd.
It's the trace minerals that are often the most important ones, and that's the part that you're still getting out of the pellet diet. A buck that really doesn't do much is probably going to be more tolerant of that substituting in the grain diet and less pellets than, say, a really rapidly growing young rabbit. Green-based foods, i.e. grasses and that sort of thing, when they're in their growing state, are packed with vitamins and minerals and nutrients, right? And they're pretty available to the animals that are adapted to eat them. So when you have that kind of green food available, i.e. even, like you say, weeds, when they're in that young growing state, you can substitute a lot of that for the pelleted diet. Much more rabbits than what we raise would probably be too much.
Well, between the gathering and the time involved, yeah, it would. We often looked at the rabbits as something that you could be sustainable on and grow your own food for them, but you would definitely be growing a lot.
Slash collecting.
Or collecting, but it is a lot of time-consuming work to do. So if you are feeding or trying to switch to a pure, like, non-pelleted diet, good quality hay is a must. To mix in with that, no matter what. We have done fodder, we've done the grains, and the best thing for us that's come around is a real blend of it all. Whether it is growing fodder in the winter to supplement those weeds that you can't get, but you really want to make sure that you've got that variety, because that saves you having to worry about those deficiencies. For us, one thing in particular does not work.
Well, and that's something about the pellets too, because the pellets are a combination of multiple different ingredients, obviously, and they're basically getting that variety in the little pellet.
Yeah,
Like the science fiction thing of your meal in a
meal and the
in a pill.
Jetsons. The Jetsons where you push the little button on the machine and
that's kind of the reality for
they
rabbits.
mashed everything all into one.
We're okay with using some of the advancements in nutrition, technology, whatever, to a point. But it's kind of finding that balance of what works for you.
Yeah.
It probably this video probably doesn't specifically answer questions. Like we're not trying to do a how-to of you need to feed your rabbit this much copper and this much calcium and this much like that.
We've never done that.
We've never looked into that.
8 years of having them, and we've just fed them a variety their whole lives.
And we've never we've never had the issues that sometimes are talked about, like bloat and bloat, or people having rabbits die on green food diets, etc.
No.
We've never had that problem, but then I think the principle too is rabbits' digestion does work on fermentation. They've got cica in their lower intestines, and then they re-eat their food. So you have a gut flora, for lack of a better way to put it, that's in the rabbit. So it does make sense that if you do a dramatic change to that, you could have problems. And that's probably where for us, by kind of always offering the variety, we never really have the dramatic change.
I think that kind of sums it up and adds to our feeding regime and our information for people on how we maintain our herd.
It's kind of whatever works for you, sort of thing. You might be able to experiment enough with a rabbit herd to actually get to a point that maybe you could do a complete grain ration. We've talked to other rabbit raisers who have tried it, and they usually in the end diverge from it. But
well, yeah, we've just found that for us, mixing it up works better, keeps the bunnies happier, and still works in keeping things simple.
On that note, I think we'll leave it there.
We'll wrap that up, and we will come with a future video on costs of raising our rabbits. We've been working on that and figuring that out, and we'll be coming with a video on that particular subject.
Costs and some considerations around it.
Because it's not sometimes all about the bottom line.
No, and it's just like the feeding. The more effort you put into it, the more refined you can get with it. So it's kind of all about how much effort you want to put into it versus what your expectations are. But we'll leave that for another time.
All right. Have a great night.